So today we are going to study money growth and inflation. So what we'll learn today is how money supply controlled by central bank affect inflation and also the nominal interest rate. And second question we want to study is that how the money supply affect the real variables like real GDP and real interest rate. So this is real variables, this is nominal variables, right? And third, how is inflation functions as like a tax, okay? And lastly, we are going to study what are the costs of inflation. So today main topic is going to be inflation. So we are going to learn very important theory called quantity theory of money, 화폐 수량설, and it is related with the 10 principles of economics. It is related this. Prices rise when the government prints too much money. So probably you remember this. In other words, government provide more money, then price will rise, okay? It is called by quantity theory of money. So we are gonna study this theory today. So how we can define the value of money? 화폐의 가치란 무엇인가를 가격이랑 같이 연결해서 생각을 해보면 price is P is representing the price of level as measured by CPI or GDP deflator. We learned this part in the early of the second half, right? And also 1 over P is the value of $1 measured in goods, right? In other words, the price level is $2, then how much is the value of $1? It means 1 over 2 candy bar, or if the price of one candy bar is $3, then value of $1 is 1 over 3 candy bar. In other words, if the price is going up, then what happens is the value of $1 decreases, right? So, in other words, there is negative relationship between the price and value of money. In other words, if price is going up, then the value of money is going down. So then, what is the quantity theory of money? So actually, this is developed by the 18th century philosopher. Probably you heard about David Hume, right? And other classical economists. And also recently, it is advocated by Nobel Prize laureate Milton Friedman. He is the most important figure the modern economics, and actually he is the main advocate of the classical school. Okay, so what it means that we are gonna study the supply and demand, which is explaining the quantity theory money, and we are gonna also study the equation. So I told you several times, I think this is the strength of the economics. You can actually learn the theory into the diagram or equation. So it's more clear way of thinking and easy to understand. So let's study the money supply. So money supplies, we studied in the previous chapter, it is controlled by central bank and also banking system and also consumer decision how much to borrow and deposit, right? And this model, we make simplification assumption. And in the beginning of this semester, we learned that by constructing model to having assumption is the most essential part, right? So in this model, we assume, so assumption is a kind of a necessary condition to build a model. So in here, the central bank precisely control monetary supply, okay? And then it is a fixed amount. And what about the money demand then? So money demand is how much wealth people want to hold in liquid form. So actually when you read this, it is very similar to liquidity preferences. But in here, we are writing the diagram in different dimension. You will see right later, but actually it is a very similar concept of the liquidity preferences. It is how much cash people want to hold in cash form, okay? And it is depending on price level, of course. Why? If the price level is high, then what happens? People has to carry more money, right? To pay that high price. So the quantity of money demanded is negatively related with the value of money or positively related with the price. Okay? So if price level is gonna go up, then what happens? Money demand is going up. So let's draw a diagram. I told you it is draw in different plane, right? So if you are looking at the y-axis, it is represented as the value of money, which is 1 over p, or the price level, right? So it is kind of, there is an inverse relationship between two. And quantity of money is on the y-axis. So that is the difference between liquidity preferences theorem, because in that you are drawing this plane, money, quantity, and also interest rate. Okay, so liquidity preferences are drawn into the interest rate and money quantity plane, but the quantity theory of money, we are focusing on the relationship between money equilibrium and also price level, right? So that's why we are plotting this plane. Okay, so in here you can see that if the value of money is a quarter, the corresponding the price level is 4, right? If the price level is gone to 1, then the purchasing power or value of money is going up, right? So if the value of money is gonna go up, then the price level is going down. So there is a negative relationship between two. And I would like to draw a money supply curve in this plane, and we assume that the Federal Reserve Central Bank set precisely the money supply at fixed sum value, right? So it is going to be vertical on this plane. And we also want to draw a money demand diagram, okay? So in here, we study that if a price level is going up, then what happens? The value of money is going down. Thus, you have to carry more cash, right? So, if you are going down, then you need more money, right? Or you can see this right side axis. The price level is going up, then you have to carry more cash. So that is money demand curve, okay? So let's draw supply curve and demand curve together. Then it looks like this. So this is a vertical money supply curve provided by central bank, and downward sloping money demand curve, and equilibrium value of money is determined half, and equilibrium quantity money is $1,000, and corresponding price level is 2. So that is gonna be the market equilibrium. In this equilibrium, the important thing is that the price level is determined. So our focus is this, the relationship between money supply and inflation or price level, right? Then what happens if we increase money supply? So the Federal Reserve inject money into the economy. In other words, they increase money supply by $10,000, right? So equilibrium is moving from A to B. So I told you several times, the reason we study the model is something happened, right? And then we have to determine this event is affecting supply curve or demand curve, and then we have to determine this event is affecting the curve to the right or left. And then last part of analysis is consists of comparing the original equilibrium with the final equilibrium. So let's compare A and B. The equilibrium value of money is decreased, and of course, the equilibrium quantity of money is determined, the exact level of the money supply, and corresponding price level is increased. So we can conclude this. If central bank increase money supply, then what happened? The price level is going up. In other words, if government print money, then inflation happened. And also, we will see later more detail, but we double the quantity of money, right? Then what happened for the price? It's doubled, right? Actually, if we double the money supply, then price level is also doubled. So that is the quantity theory of money, okay? And also this is money demand and money supply diagram. So increasing money supply causes price to rise. And why is this? Because given the first place, the price level 2, there is more money is injected, and it is gonna cause excess supply money, right? And people have excess money, then what happened? They wanna spend it on goods and services, right? Then what happened? Finally, actually, it will lead to increased demand for goods. And in the short run, the supply good is gonna be fixed, right? Then what happened? With the same amount of supply of goods and services, the price must rise. So if we increase money supply, because the supply of goods and services is fixed, that's why the price has to be rise. Okay, so it's a typical demand and supply curve. There's more demand than what happened. The price is gonna go up, right? So actually, using this fact, we can understand the current situation. Due to the COVID-19, the government increased huge expenditure, and also they decrease interest rate. In other words, it has the same effect with the money supply increase. So there's more money is circulating, or excess supply of money. Thus, we are observing the price rise, right? So actually, what we are doing is injecting huge amount of money into the economy. So that's why we saw inflation around us, okay? In here, I'd like to introduce very important distinction between real variables and nominal variables. 실질 변수와 명목 변수. So what is nominal variable? It is just or measured in monetary units. Okay? So one of the function of money is the unit of account, right? So it is just represented as a dollar or Korean won. So nominal GDP or nominal interest rate, which is advertised by commercial bank in front of windows, or nominal wage, so how much you are gonna pay, right? All things are just nominal variables measured in monetary unit. And more important variables are real variables. And actually, it is really important in economics. So it is measured in physical unit. So can you see the distinction between two? The measurement is different. So we know what is a real GDP and what is a real interest rate and real wage. So real wage is measured in output. So you will understand these meaning later with examples, but first you have to memorize the definition of nominal variables and real variables because it is a really key concept of economics. So I told you there are several fundamental concepts you have to memorize once you learn economics. So that is one of them. So let's looking at this. The price of compact disc is $15 and one pizza costs $10. So it is measured by money, right? And let's calculating relative price. It is the price of the one good relative to another, right? So I don't like to measure the price of city as measured by pizza, right? Then it is 15 over 10. In other words, one city is equal to 1.5 pizzas, right? So it is measured by goods, right? So it's kind of real price. Because if you go back to the definition of real variables, it is measured in physical unit. For simplification, we only use pizza as a physical unit, but it could be a combination of some goods and services like a basket, right? When we measure inflation. So let's compare the real and nominal wage. So wage is just measured in the monetary unit, such as $15 per hour, okay? And for example, the price level in this economy, the price of goods and services of some specific basket is $5, then my real wage is this. So it is the price of labor relative the price of output, right? Because real variables are measured in what? Physical unit, right? So $15 is divided by $5. So I can say that my real wage is 3 units of output per hour, okay? It is measured in physical unit. So that is the difference between real ways and nominal ways. And once we learn the difference between nominal variables and real variables, we are ready to learn the classical dichotomy, okay? So it means that theoretical separation of nominal and real variables. So theoretically, they are totally different things, okay? That is what the classical dichotomy is talking about. So as this title is just representing, this is supported by classical school, 고전학파의 이분법이라고 생각하시면 돼요. So what it means that monetary things does not affect the real thing. In other words, the money supply is only affecting nominal variables. What is the definition of nominal variables? It is measured in monetary unit. So thus, if we change the money supply, only nominal variables are affected, but it does not affecting the real variable. What is real variable? Real variable is measured in physical unit. So, in other words, theoretically, nominal variables and real variables are determined by totally different factors. That there's two separating worlds. So that is what we call classical dichotomy. Okay. So I'm gonna summarize again. So if central bank double the money supply with the previous examples, what happened? So what we studied that the money supply is changing from 1,000 to 2,000, right? Then price level is changing from 2 to 4, right? So price is double, but actually the other real variable will not change. So that is gonna be the bottom line of the classical dichotomy is talking about. So the key understanding is this, the difference between real variables and nominal variables. So relating concept is neutrality of money. 화폐의 중립성. So what is monetary neutrality? Is the assertion that changes in money supply do not affect the real variables. Okay, so actually it's kind of repetition, but it is representing this part. So money is affecting the nominal variables and money does not affecting real variables. There is a separating world, right? It's a classical dichotomy, and the fact that the money does not affect the real variables, it's the representing by the word neutrality of money, okay? There's a separation between two, it is called classical dichotomy, and money does not affect the real variable. We call this the neutrality of money, okay? So we will see why. So let's looking at the previous examples. We know that one city is equal to 1.5 pizza per city, right? But every price level doubled at the same time. Then what happened? The price of city become $30 from $15, and price of pizza become $20 from $10. So everything become double. Then what happened to the relative price? One city is also 1.5 pizzas. Even though nominal prices are doubled, but real price is also same, right? So that is why the neutrality of money means, okay? Only nominal price is changing, but what happened? The money does not affecting the real variables. This is the same, right? But money doubled the price, nominal price. Okay, so that is gonna be due to relative of money. The relative price is the same. And also think about the wage, okay? Real wage. Everything is the same with the previous example. You remember? In the previous examples, we have $15 per hour and $5 per unit of output. If everything doubles, it becomes $30 per hour. It's gonna be nominal wage. And also $10 per unit of output, right? Then what happened? The W over P is equal to 3. Even though the nominal price doubled, but relative price or the real wage is equal to 3. In other words, the relative price or real wage is exactly same as before, right? So, everything is the same. Then what happened? Employment is the same and everything is the same. Then total output is also same, right? So, in other words, even though we change money supply, the nominal GDP is the same. So, I told you we can see the quantity of the money into two methods, right? One is diagram, right? Second method is equation, right? And it is a very nice and clear way to understand the theory. In the diagram, we see typical supply and demand curve. Y-axis is 1 over P, right? And x-axis is money quantity. And in the liquidity preferences, it is interest rate and money quantity, and also it has a typical money supply and money demand curve. Okay, so we want to study the theory of quantity of money in the equation. Okay, in here I'd like to introduce one new definition: velocity of money. In Korean, it's 화폐의 유통 속도. It means that the rate at which money change hands. So how much money is circulating? So let's looking at this. P is representing the price level and Y is representing real GDP. Thus, this P times Y is representing nominal GDP, okay? And M is representing money supply and V is velocity. So I told you we introduced the velocity of money. So we calculate the velocity of money from the data. So V is calculated as following: nominal GDP divided by money supply. So you will understand this concept more intuitively with example, but let's try to memorize this equation, okay? Velocity of money is nominal GDP divided by money supply. So let's looking at the examples. So there is one goods and real GDP is 3,000 pizzas and price of pizza is $10. then nominal GDP, P times real GDP is gonna be $30,000. And money supply in this economy is $10,000. Then by this equation, the velocity of money is $30,000 divided by $10,000, which is equal to 3, right? In other words, so there's only $10,000, but the total transaction has to be amount $30,000. So average dollar was used 3 transactions. So it has to circulate 3 times. Then it consists of $30,000 amount of transactions, right? So that is what the money velocity means. So this example is gonna be very important. So we are looking at the other example with corn economy. There's one good corn and nominal real GDP is 800 bushels of corn. And this example, the velocity of money is constant and money supply is $2,000 and the price level of bushel of the corn is $5. Then let's compute nominal GDP. It's easy, right? Because we can just make the product of real GDP times price, right? So it's gonna be $5 times 800 bushels. So it is gonna be $4,000. Then we can calculate the velocity of money because we can divide $4,000 divide by money supply, which is $2,000. So velocity of money is $2, 2 times, right? In other words, the average dollar was used in 2 transactions. Okay, so let's looking at the data. So actually, I told you that the velocity of money can be calculated from the data, which is P times Y. Everything is observable divided by money supply, right? It's measured by M1 or M2, right? So every P, Y, M is observable, so we can actually calculate the V, right? So when we actually calculate the velocity of money, it was pretty stable and constant, okay? So what we observe from nominal GDP in M2 is there is a very strong relationship between two, right? So actually, when we looking at the data, we can confirm that the quantity theory of money might hold. In other words, if M money supply is increasing, then what happen? The nominal GDP P times Y is increasing, right? So that is the observation from the data. So I really would like to emphasize you have to check in the data, okay? The macroeconomics is about what? Y, GDP, P, inflation, and unemployment, okay? So it's a study of those 3 important macroeconomy, right? So, and also what we study, economic growth and economic fluctuation. Economic growth is related to what? Productivity. And it's kind of long-term project to improve productivity, such as education, R&D, right? And economic fluctuation, it is the happening of up and down of the Y, right? So we have to manage or react those economic fluctuation. That is what all government around the world is doing. And how we can do it using fiscal policy and monetary policy, right? And why this is gonna be affecting on through the AD, aggregate demand, so 총수요 관리 정책을 통해서 경기 변동을 해결하는 것, 그 다음에 productivity를 향상시켜서 장기적인 경제 성장을 이끌어내는 것. That is what macroeconomics is doing. So basically, macroeconomics are based on data. So it's different from micro. Micro is kind of a theory, but macro is about data. So you have to check in data all the time. So let's looking at this equation more detail. We see that velocity of money is pretty stable. Then what happened to the M and PY? So this is stable. If we change M, then this part might be changing, right? P times Y will also change by equation. But in the short term, what happened is that even though we changing money supply, but actually it does not affecting real variables, real GDP, right? Because relative price is same. Thus, employment and use of capital might be same. Thus, output is similar. So, why is it same? Then what happened? The M change will directly lead to the price change, right? So price change by same percentage as M change. So that is kind of the conclusion of the quantity theory of money. In other words, if we just increase the money supply, then what happens? It will induce only inflation. Okay? So it does not affecting the real GDP. So that is gonna be the bottom line of the quantity theory of money. So lastly, let's looking at the example of the quantity theory of money. Okay, it is the same example with the active learning one. There is one economy and one goods with coin, and they produce 8 bushels of corn, and V is constant. And in 2014, money supply is $2,000, and the price level is $5. But new factor is added. In next year, the central bank increased monetary supply by 5%. Thus, the 5% of 2,000 is $100. So, money supply become $2,100. Then let's compute the 2015 value of nominal GDP and price and inflation rate. Okay. And the second question is actually, with the money supply increase, there's technological progress. Then Y is increased to 824 from 800. Then what happened for the inflation rate? So that is going to be 2 quiz about the application of the quantity theory of money. So in the 2015, what happened is that nominal GDP is P times Y is equal to M times V by the definition of velocity of money, right? So M become $2,100 and velocity of money is 2 is stable. So nominal GDP is equal to $4,000 and $200, right? So in this case, how much is the price level? Price level is NV divided by Y, right? In the first example, the real GDP does not change, right? So it's $800. It's the same with the 2014 real GDP, right? So in this case, price will become $5.25. Then let's calculate the inflation rate. It's a new price, old price, divided by old price. So it's important you have to know how we can calculate the change rate of some variables, right? It's gonna be the new variable minus old variable divided by old variables. So that is the equation how we can calculate the changing rate of some specific variables. So in this case, the inflation rate is 5%. So actually, they want to point out that we increase money supply by 5% and real GDP is the same because relative price is the same. Thus, it is equal to inflation rate. In other words, money supply increase is exactly same of inflation rate increase. Okay, so that is what the quantity theory of money is talking about, and it is related with the principle that if government print money, then money supply will increase, thus price will rise. Okay, next example add a little bit twist because some technological progresses happen, thus actually real GDP is increased to 824 from 800, right? So it's a previous real GDP, but it became increased due to technological progress. Then what happened for the price level? So NV is the same, right? The 4,200 divided by 824. Thus, new price level is 5.1. So, we can calculate the inflation rate as a 2%, right? In here, what we can see this. Actually, why? Real GDP increased. Then what happened? The changing rate of M, so its percentage, is larger than changing rate of price percentage. In other words, I can write down this way. So M times V is equal to what? P times Y, right? And the velocity of money is stable, then how can I represent? Change of M is approximately change of P times change of Y, right? Change plus, right? It's log, right? Plus change of Y. So you don't need to understand perfectly right now, but I would like to add some explanation to help your understanding, okay? So if real GDP does not change, then what happened? The change of M equal to change of P, right? But second case, what happened? Actually, there is a change of Y, right? Due to technological progress, then what happened? The change of M must be larger than change of the price. In this case, how can I get calculated? So 5% is total money supply increase, right? Then it's a 2% is explained by price change plus 3% is explained by GDP increase because so it's 800 to 824, right? So that is a kind of 3% increase. So can you understand? If real GDP increased, then inflation rate is smaller than money supply change. So that is the second question is talking about. So this is gonna be the last part of the today's lecture. And so lesson about the quantity theory of money is that if real GDP is constant, then inflation rate is equal to money growth rate. But real GDP is growing, then what happen? Money growth rate is a sum of real GDP growth rate plus inflation rate. Thus, inflation rate is smaller than money growth rate. So, the bottom line is economic growth increase the number of transactions. So, money growth is needed for this extra transaction, but excess money growth causes inflation. Okay, so this is representing this. If Y is increasing, then money has to increase. Okay, but if money increasing rate is larger than this, then what happens? The price will rise. Okay, so if a central bank fail to control the money supply, then what happened? Hyperinflation is happening. So hyperinflation means that inflation is exceeding 50% per month. It was happen because government prints too much money. In other words, there's huge supply of money. Then what happened? The price level is a huge amount, exceeding 50% per month. We call this hyperinflation. So actually in Korean, we just call this hyperinflation. So credibility of central bank is so important because money can be just printed. Why? Because fiat currency has no intrinsic value. So that's why central bank is very important institutions. So that is gonna be today's lecture. Then I'm gonna see you next time.